what is it that made us think that this was not about us, that, somehow we're still money even though everybody else is credit. So, we've had failures on a large scale in the past, and we've had international response. So BCCI, of course, in 1991 was a famous one, and that resulted in international response. And the Basel core principles and home host coordination, all of that came out of a big failure and created an institutional response both internationally and domestically. The Asian financial crisis gave us the Financial Stability Forum, which has since become the FSB. Right? So what have we learned from those experiences, and where are we now? I think we should think about these problems, and we do think about these problems from two perspectives, ex ante and ex post. Who is regulating and supervising whom, and very importantly, for whose sake? And ex post, who is supplying the liquidity, who is ensuring, who is bearing the losses, and who is in charge of resolution, and to what extent do these functions mesh well, right? Are the people who are paying also the people who are running the show? I think from the outside, it seems like we've made a bit more progress on the former, on thinking about regulation and supervision, than the latter. And I think there are very good reasons for that. On the former, on regulation and supervision, I think one of the interesting challenges is this new frontier of macroprudential regulation, right? So this is regulating for the sake of financial stability. And for example, where you have global conglomerates, to what extent would the home authorities, say Japan, regulate for the sake of stability and economic growth in Korea, or Austria for Hungary, or Sweden for the Baltics? I'm not sure to what extent this is, how far we've traveled down that line of thinking, and to what extent it's feasible. And more importantly, for just politically feasible. For our conversation today, to what extent does what we do on the resolution end, ex post, affect regulation ex ante? Okay? Now, the biggest challenges in resolution to me seem really on burden sharing, and that is something that is the hardest to address and that we've always addressed by proxy. Governments have long had considerable authorities, maybe not all the authorities they need, but considerable authorities to intervene and close financial institutions. And I've had actually my students at Georgetown in 2012 had a seminar where they studied a number of jurisdictions ranging from Sweden and Japan to Nigeria and France and Brazil and Kenya. And on the one hand, it was just this dizzying array of countries. On the other hand, the one thing we found was that governments didn't use the authorities they had, right? It wasn't that maybe they didn't have enough authorities, but sure as heck they didn't use those they had. And every government started with, or almost every government started with, forbearance and liquidity support and hoping that this would be over. And then, having spent the money in the cross-border setting, governments have an even greater incentive to engage in what bankruptcy folks think of as an asset grab race, or ring fencing in the financial institutions context, to protect their political constituents